fans, as they do the double then, over Newcastle, home and away with the victories. How can Dortmund be so good in these matches and so rubbish at the weekend against Bayern? Well, obviously Newcastle is not nearly as good as Bayern Munich. Now what? But, frankly, and I'm just looking at it from the perspective because I've seen Borussia Dortmund and I saw their lack of defending not only against Bayern Munich but the weekend before against Eintracht Frankfurt. Coming into this game in 2 league games, what if a Dortmund had allowed 7 goals? Quick math, that's not very good, no. And so defensively they have their issues in transition and that's all. It almost felt like Newcastle had not seen the tape and hadn't seen the fact that Matt Hummels cannot run with anybody that has any sort of speed. I understand that Newcastle is going to set up defensively in a way that they're going to some pressure because of their injuries and what have you, so then that opens them up for the opportunity to go on the counter. But you're one guy that somewhat matches the profile of a player like Leroy Sane will say, able to exploit an Bayern Munich. Is Miguel Almiron and you have them on the bench. Now, I'm not comparing Armstrong and Sonny, but he is the profile of player that can run by a guy like Matt Hummels that I can at least give you and now later on a counter-attack opportunity in transition and can exploit some of the frailties that Dortmund has been shown throughout the course of the season. He's on the bench. You have indeed no option going on the counter, nobody to really hold the ball up. Wilson is sort of running around all by himself. There was no outlet, there was no second or third pass and therefore no opportunity for transition. That meant that Borussia Dortmund can do what they do best. And that is, you know what? We can attack, we can set our numbers for. We can park ourselves in the attacking half. We're gonna pressure the ball, win it right back and try to create chances that way. That's why we're done. We're able to win the game as easily as they did, so quite straightforward, wasn't it, for Dortmund and no stage. Did you really think that Newcastle were going to get back by far the better side and particularly in the first half? I think in the team set up right and you can forget that 4-3-3 because it wasn't. I think they were way too cautious. He played 2, he basically was 4-5-1 yeah. Right Liver met 2 fullbacks in the right side, Livramento and Trippier and Joelinton on the left, 3 in the middle part and Callum Wilson somewhere up there. Yeah right, a country mile from anybody. So when they did win it back, their outball was getting swallowed up by 2 or 3 players against 1 and it was coming straight back so I thought they were way too cautious, therefore they were trying to keep. When they did win the ball back, they were on the edge of their own penalty area and the trying to play out and Borussia Dortmund were nicking it. I think they missed a great opportunity here to a side who got smashed, at the weekend and who are slow at the back. And I think for me Eddie, Howe looking at his selection and in the first half and he did change it. Anthony Gordon came on, Almiron came on and they looked a lot livelier looking at his selection. It said to me we will take a point but what he did to me was handed the initiative straight to Borussia Dortmund and they took it battered and bruised by Borussia Dortmund. That was disappointing thing. If you're a Newcastle supporter watching the way you are set up for this tie is that you go for it. You know they're very much on the road. On the one hand, Dortmund there had to be a response given what we saw on the weekend you'd expect. On the other, Newcastle coming off the back of a very good result themselves into the Champions League, and I've said this time and time again, Newcastle, when they play more attacking, when they play on the front foot, they are far better. When they set up to sit back and soak up pressure, they have struggled. That's when they were at their best against PSG. Yes, they lost to Dortmund at St. James Park but the performance was a whole lot better. So like everybody was a little bit surprised with how kind of cautious Eddie went and thought it was more to do with maybe injuries and how he just had to kind of patch team up seeing Joelinton play that high up the park. That is not his best role for Newcastle United and then I thought with the changes can you point us this exclusion? Look but you deal with this and I think Newcastle has dealt with this fairly well. You know Callum Wilson isn't Alexander Isak, you know he plays on the shoulder of centre-backs. So player that I just again felt that the setup was too defensive and while things change in the first change at half-time and I thought Newcastle were a whole lot better. Dortmund were comfortable because now they have the lead, they can sit back, they can soak pressure up and they can hit Newcastle on the counter-attack and that was the bigger threat. As long as it didn't allow Newcastle back in the game they just kind of let it fizzle out and then Newcastle played their part in the second goal that clinched it. But, from a Dortmund's perspective I thought they handled the second half really well when in my opinion I thought Newcastle gave them that opportunity. All those players were out at the weekend. Dan Burns only played one half when Jacob Murphy come on for a few minutes and his shoulder went and they managed to go toe-to-toe with Arsenal, who I think we would all agree are a better side than Dortmund would be. Newcastle were at home. So I don't think injuries are an excuse at all, it's just how you cope with it. I thought the way that he set his team up in that first half just invited Dortmund all over them. The only 2 cents I can offer Newcastle here is that they have really struggled with these Champions League weeks. Whether it's how they fear after and they've got Bournemouth to come now or in the live up to it, it's a little bit of a learning process. That being said, that is an excuse of somebody who's supporting Newcastle. The performance itself was poor. Well, they got what they deserve. They fully got what they deserve today. Now I'm with the jury, you know. For me it was insane and quite stupid. You know, from Eddie. I mean, we all agree that it does a good job with Newcastle, but that was real crazy mistake I saw today from him. He is completely responsible. No, the injuries are not an excuse for him. The way he set up the team was completely wrong. Except when you know who you're gonna face. Dortmund, with all the doubts that they've been completely crushed last weekend when Newcastle won. You know, go for it, enjoy the Champions League. Yeah, it's a learning process for the team, but especially, and today was a lesson of what not to do. That was crazy for me, to see what Newcastle showed in the first half, meaning playing the complete opposite of what they are capable of doing.